Okay, so the next type of slide that I'd like to talk about is full screen. So what we're going to do is just add a new slide to our presentation. Here's my slide. I'm going to just make sure that it's full screen. And you'll see here that I can insert a photo or video background, similar to the title slide, and then also a content area. So in this content area though, I want to show you another really effective way to communicate, and that is to use an icon rather than text to communicate an idea. For example, I'm going to click here on this icon, and I'm going to just type in magic. And I can see a lot of different icons here that represent magic. We've got the typical bunny in the hat. We've got magic wands. We've got kind of fingers snapping and making things happen. So all kind of things that might communicate magic or illusion or fantasy. I'm actually going to choose something really abstract. I'm just going to use these kind of sparkly stars. And I'll show you in just a bit how to use this type of image to communicate when we add some audio to our presentation. And this is a very powerful way to have students think deeply, and especially if you are teaching in an English class, this is a really great way to introduce metaphor. Because we can introduce a visual metaphor in the same way that we often use a verbal metaphor. So think about that. It's a really interesting way to help students kind of tap into, again, that creative mindset of not laying everything out so linear all the time, but helping them explore a little bit the thoughts that they're trying to convey and to be more creative and a little bit more loose so that the viewer themselves can imbue the things that are being communicated in the presentation with their own experience and with their own ideas and their own thought. And it's a really great way to sort of create a presentation that encourages a little bit more discussion and a little bit more thought. This is really what Adobe apps are all about, is how do we help people tap into that creative part of themselves, tap into that part that's almost adding a dimension. It's almost like making thoughts three-dimensional. So yeah, I've kind of explained the width and the height of this idea, but now let's think about the depth that we can explore with this particular concept or idea. So encouraging students to communicate a little bit more visually and to resist the temptation to define their ideas, because the definition of define is to place limits on something. If you define a problem, you're defining what it is that you will explore. If the definition is not so solid, that's when people can kind of come in with new ideas or a different perspective on something, and you can really just begin to get a little bit more exploratory with the core concept being discussed. So that's pretty much the basics of using the full screen slide. You can see that it's a very basic slide type. It basically just allows you to include a background and a single content type limited to either text or icons.